I had to learn pain tolerance the hard way. When I was 9 years old, I had osteomyelitis in my left tibia. What my parents thought was a run-of-the-mill ankle sprain turned out to be a deadly bone infection that nearly cost me my life in weeks in the hospital. That pain in my leg in the hospital was the worst I've ever experienced, and I still remember it very vividly 21 years later. So I just have one question for you.
Have you ever been in a lot of pain? Well, I've been injured a lot. To me, it's part of being an athlete. From concussions to broken bones, surgeries, even severed ligaments. I have persistent injuries from rugby and other contact sports.
I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms.
And yet, I'm a natural competitive powerlifter, still aiming for a 500-pound bench press, a 700-pound squat, and a 700-pound deadlift. And I'm almost there. Even in just my recent powerlifting journey this year, I've had injuries, ongoing pain, tweaks in my back, tendinitis. You can check out my vlog series where I complain about that a lot. I severed the ligament in my thumb on a re-rack in a competition a few years back.
And the judges say 2-1, that is a good state record. And the judges say...
That injury took surgery and months of physical therapy.
Yeah, so I was hoping that I could move it more, but that is about all I can do. There's no bending it right now. It looks disgusting.
I still don't have full mobility in my thumb, so I guess I'll never be doing a hook grip deadlift. And where I'm going with this pain, these injuries, it's never going to stop me from being an athlete or stop me from training hard in the gym. And I'll tell you why. That's the point of this video. If you're an athlete that goes to the gym, or maybe you want to be one and you're worried about injuries, injury risk, form, exercise selection, or managing injuries maybe you already have, this video is for you. This video is for the guys commenting on my bench press videos saying they have terrible shoulder pain and they want to get back into it. There are tons of people like that out there, myself included, that have benched heavy, hit a pain barrier, and just can't seem to overcome it. And maybe they give up benching altogether. Or maybe you're new to your fitness journey, and maybe you have some anxiety about pain and injury in the gym. This video is also for you. I've been that newbie with lots of gym anxiety, and I've been that athlete pushing through injuries that I probably shouldn't have. Today, I want to go over my personal philosophy on pain and injury management on my own athletic journey. What I think it takes to be tough, increase pain tolerance, and how I think you can actually reduce risk for injury in evidence-based science. And honestly, I think I'll have some controversial takes. I'm probably going to say something many of you will disagree with. I was on one end of the pendulum for this topic, and now I'm on the other side. And I may just straight up say something wrong. If you're an expert in this field, please tell me where I'm wrong in the comments, but make sure to subscribe first. I'm going to go over some sensitive topics, whether I think good form actually decreases injury risk. Here's my caveat. This is not medical advice. I'm not a medical professional. Do not go to your doctor and say, well, Meathead Matt said to walk it off. I'm just a dude with some personal experience. My opinion has been formed by anecdotal evidence and some science-based evidence from actual medical professionals, which I'll talk about in this video as well. But that's my liability disclaimer. I'm just a dude with an opinion. Winnie here just got spayed. To kick us off, I want to put a thought in your head. Have you ever suffered an injury and it didn't hurt that much? Or did you ever get something that really didn't inflict a lot of actual tissue damage, but it hurt a ton? I'm thinking like a stubbed toe, a splinter. Those things hurt a lot, but there's not a lot of actual tissue damage happening, at least not to the extent that warrants that amount of pain. I want to establish this principle that I'm stealing from Aaron Kubal, who is a pain specialist, and that is pain is an alarm, not necessarily harm. Imagine a doctor giving a child a shot, like a vaccine. Are you done? So the doctor is going in to give them the shot, and the child is watching it happen, and they're screaming in pain, freaking out. But if you distract them with candy or redirect their attention, then you do the shot. They often never notice it or wasn't a big deal. So I want you to think, when you're in pain, Do you know if tissue damage is actually happening, or are you just thinking that there could be? I'm not saying all pain you experience is in your head. Sometimes something is seriously wrong and our body wants to tell us, like when you flinch when you touch a hot pan. But what I'm saying is, for most of your run-of-the-mill aches, pains, discomforts, I no longer just assume that what I'm experiencing is actual tissue damage. So we have established that there is at least a mental component to pain. There is, to an extent, wiggle room to assume you're actually okay and that you can walk it off. And if that proves to be false, then you reassess. Again, calm down, honey. What is going on? Here's a personal example. I hurt my shoulder in football a long time ago. For the life of me, I couldn't raise my arm above my head comfortably. I always felt like a pinching, some discomfort, and I just assumed that I had a shoulder injury. I accepted the idea that it was a lifelong injury and there was essentially nothing I could do outside of surgery. But over time, as I wanted to get bigger and stronger in the gym, I just told myself, maybe I'm not injured. I had never had imaging done or x-rays, and I had never really done anything to address the pain. I just tried to avoid it. So I thought maybe it just hurts. Maybe it hurts because I've convinced myself that my shoulder is fragile. I had this mental image in my head of bone scraping against bone, but that's all it was, a mental image. I had no proof. That's just how it felt. Eventually, I just pushed through the pain a little bit at a time. I would increase my pain tolerance week to week. I just started with an empty bar and did some shoulder press. I could do that pretty pain-free. Each week, I would poke the bear into pain. I wouldn't avoid pain altogether, but each week I would poke that bear just a little more, just enough to tolerate the pain, but not aggravate it. And eventually my shoulders got strong and healthy. I eventually started moving well over 250 pounds on overhead press. Now I'm closer to like 285 pounds. I've been trying to reach 315. That's another topic. Still, I literally couldn't have imagined that 10 years ago. I realized that the pain I was experiencing each week, poking that bear, wasn't damage. It was progress. It was twofold. I increased my pain tolerance and I gained confidence in my ability to perform the movement, my ability to get better, and I stopped the mindset that my body was fragile. I'm going to reference this article a lot by the folks of Barbell Medicine. If you haven't checked out Barbell Medicine, these guys are actual MDs and they're meatheads, and they look at the evidence-based research with a lot of scrutiny. So please check out their content and their website. But this article articulates my points a little better than I can. Here's the opening paragraph. Most people view pain through a mechanical lens, as if the body operates like a machine that is prone to breaking and wearing out. In this view, pain serves an accurate indicator of damage to their bodily tissues. The seemingly logical conclusion from this premise is that painful activities should be avoided. While this view is commonly perpetuated in society by healthcare professionals, the past several decades of research have shown it to be inaccurate. We are complex organisms with many differences compared to machines. Principally, the ability to adapt. We now understand that pain is a complex experience that is more related to the perception of a threat and a need for protection than active tissue damage. Furthermore, this experience can be influenced by a number of biological, psychological, and social/environmental factors, which we refer to as biopsychosocial factors. So the idea I want to put in your head is maybe you're not hurt. Maybe you're just hurting. My philosophy I use for myself, I just try and stay mentally open to the idea that the pain I'm experiencing is an alarm, to not panic, not equivalent to actual tissue damage happening. And unless something is clearly wrong, like a broken bone, my first instinct now is to kind of just train through it in a way. To me, there's merit to trying to walk it off. And I'll get more into that later. Like, I've gotten leveled playing rugby before. The wind knocked out of me, and yeah, it hurt. And I've seen guys get up and walk off the field convinced that they are injured because they got hit hard and they're a lot of pain. They got their bell rung. But this is why my first instinct is to try and walk it off. My first instinct used to be to try and nurse it, to baby it, to avoid working it, because that meant avoiding pain. But I didn't realize that that meant avoiding the path to making it better. As the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. I don't know. It just seems poetic to me that the typical path to getting better is the one we naturally avoid. Let's take a step back. More than likely, you're here because you're training in the gym and you want to know what movements, what specific forms or cues are safe. How can you avoid injury in the gym? And that's important. If you're an athlete outside of the gym, or you have, a life and want to do things, you don't want to say, tear a bicep in the gym if you're training for baseball. I get a lot of comments on folks trying to get back into bench press, but they have shoulder pain. The gym is where you're supposed to train, not get hurt, right? This is why people say, oh, you have to deadlift with a straight back, or avoid deadlifting altogether, or don't ego lift, don't overhead press from behind your head, don't do lat pull downs from behind your head, don't do half reps, don't do this, don't do that. And this is why a lot of folks get gym anxiety. They're afraid of getting hurt or doing something wrong and getting judged. I'm going to make my philosophy really simple, and this is where it gets controversial. I believe you can boil down whether an exercise is safe or not based off one question. Can you do that exercise with a pool noodle? Seriously, whatever movement or exercise or form you think is bad or unsafe, can you do that movement with a pool noodle? Probably, right? Obviously, there's nuance to this. Don't tell me you have 5 spinal fusions and a broken neck and you can't do any movement at all. This is generally speaking. Okay, let's take it one step further. Can you do that movement with an empty barbell? No weight added. Whatever movement you're afraid of, a rounded back deadlift, behind the neck press, whatever, can you progress from a pool noodle to an empty barbell? Maybe not, but if you're a healthy adult, you probably can, okay? Let's say you do a rounded back deadlift with an empty bar. You do it for 5 repetitions. Probably not going to experience pain or increase your risk of injury. It's too easy. The weight is too small and the amount of reps you just did is too small. Okay, now with the empty barbell, I'm gonna ask you to do it 15 times. Maybe you're feeling the burn a little bit, but probably haven't increased your risk of injury. Okay, what if I ask you to do it 100 times? What about 1,000 times? At some point, your form is going to break down, and maybe you'll try and keep pushing, and maybe that's when you hurt yourself. Where I'm going with this, is it the movement that was not safe, or was it the amount of reps we just did? The amount of volume? It's probably the amount of volume, okay? So let's keep volume low, 1 repetition. Whatever movement it is, on an empty barbell, you can probably do it for 1 rep. Now I want you to add 100 pounds. Maybe, depending on your strength, you can still do it, but you feel the strain. Okay, maybe add 500 pounds, 700 pounds. You probably can't do it at the drop of a dime. If you keep pushing and straining, maybe you'll hurt yourself then. So again, was it the movement that was dangerous? Or was it the amount of weight on the bar, the load on the bar? Where I'm going with this, I firmly believe there's no such thing as a bad movement or bad form. If you can do the movement with an empty barbell or even a pool noodle, for my extreme example, then logically to me, the movement is safe. The potentially unsafe part is how much weight or volume you put on top of it, and whether you are prepared for that or not. And that applies to more than just barbell movements. If I train to run a mile, and that's all I've ever done, and suddenly I try to run a marathon, and let's say I get hurt running that marathon, then I can ask myself, is it running that was dangerous? Like the exercise of running? Or did I just do too much too quickly for what my body could handle at that particular point in time? Obviously, I'm not running a marathon anytime soon, but you get the point. So rather than avoiding a movement altogether, I think we should shift our focus and our attention to a concept called fatigue and load management. What I've really talked about so far is just load management. That means progressing smartly, not doing too much volume too quickly for what your body can handle, and not piling on too much weight too soon either for what your body can handle. And that doesn't just apply to a single session in the gym. It maybe more so applies across weeks and months of training. That's where fatigue management comes in, like taking strategic deloads. It's well known among lifters that cumulative fatigue is a real thing. You can't train 100% all of the time, no matter what, and progress isn't linear. You can't add 5 pounds to the bar every week until you die. We'd all be benching 10,000 pounds by the time we died then. or somebody do the math on that. At some point, you need rest. You need to deload. So if you want to avoid injuries in the gym, my philosophy is don't fear movements that you can do pain-free with an empty barbell. Instead, be mindful of your fatigue and your load management, and choose exercises that make sense for your goals. For instance, if you aren't a powerlifter and you don't want to deadlift, that's fine. But I also don't think it's fair to tell powerlifters who deadlift a lot of weight with a rounded back that it's dangerous for them, especially if it kind of passes the visual test. Does it look like they know what they're doing? Someone left a comment on my last video saying that the pool noodle example doesn't make sense because you can't get injured curling the pool noodle, that the weight was not enough. But I still don't think that disproves my point. The movement itself was safe, moving your joints from point A to point B. Replace the pool noodle with a PVC pipe or an empty bar. And if the movement is pain-free, it's probably not inherently dangerous. But even if I asked you to bicep curl a pool noodle 100,000 times, eventually you'd fail, right? Probably not at the 100,000 mark, probably more like at the 500 mark or something. And if you kept pushing past that point, that would be poor load management. Okay, now let's say I hand you a barbell with 150 pounds and I tell you to curl it. You're pushing hard, it hurts, and your form breaks down. Now you might be at risk for a bicep tear, especially if you're not prepared or conditioned for that load. So I don't know, I'm beating a dead horse here. Do you agree with my philosophy? Do you disagree? Do you truly believe that in the context of the gym, some movements are just inherently unsafe? I'm not arguing that jumping in front of a car is safe, or that anything you do with your body is safe. But I am saying we probably need to stop demonizing specific exercises or movement patterns in this fear-mongering way. And maybe you can argue that risk is a spectrum. I kind of dabble with this in my head myself. For instance, maybe pull-ups are more dangerous than push-ups because you could fall and roll your ankle. Or maybe you miss a box jump. That's more dangerous than doing machine curls. And I'm not saying that form doesn't matter at all. I think it absolutely does, but in the context of mechanical efficiency. Like, is your bar path in a straight line? Are you moving the weight in a way that gives you the best leverage? It's like the principle of picking up a box. If you lift it with your arms outstretched, it's going to feel way harder than if you keep it close to your body. Same weight, different efficiency. That's what I mean by good or bad form. Not safety, but leverage and performance. Back to the Barbell Medicine article, I want to highlight this section next. The idea of threat is especially relevant given common public perceptions of lifting weights as inherently unsafe or unsafe in the absence of perfect technique. The obsession with rigid technical perfectionism stems from the traditional body as machine narrative, rather than from an understanding that humans can adapt to an enormous variety of movements and positions when dosed and loaded appropriately. Consider the wide variety of movement styles we observe just among powerlifters, or all the other ways humans move across different sports. Consider what would constitute an unacceptable technique for a Cirque du Soleil performer. It is difficult, if not impossible, to establish physical positions that are inherently bad across the population. Note, cadaver studies are not helpful here since corpses can't adapt. Given the lack of evidence to support claims about the inherently dangerous positions or movements, and given the global problems of physical inactivity and musculoskeletal pain, we would prefer not to perpetuate negative expectations and perceptions of threat associated with physical activity and exercise. Imparting these sorts of beliefs with our words has been an enduring harmful impact on people. Our bodies aren't fragile. We're not machines. We're complex, adaptive organisms designed to move through space however we see fit. So next I want to talk about, what do you do when you're actually hurting? Like you're actively experiencing pain right now. We've all been here before. If you train in the gym, even semi-regularly, you're going to experience some pain. It's a given. Nobody is perfect when it comes to fatigue and load management. You're going to do too much too quickly at some point. You might even cut a session short if something's really hurting bad. There are a lot of resources I'll link down below, and that's just some of them that have influenced my personal protocol. So please check those out. That way you can see where my philosophy comes from. And my approach, I would say, is most like Dr. Austin Baraki's, one of the doctors behind Barbell Medicine. On Alan Thrall's channel, Untamed Strength, he talks through a protocol for handling pain in the gym. So this is heavily plagiarized from that. So check that out. But Let's take an example. Let's say I hurt myself deadlifting, which happens to me semi-regularly. I get low back pain and tightness that sometimes lasts for weeks. Sometimes it's bad enough that I leave the gym early, straight up. And weirdly, even when it kind of feels better, it can still bleed into other daily things like sweeping or cleaning my cat's litter box. That can trigger it. And I have 3 cats, so there is a lot of litter. Isn't that right? But when this happens to me now, I don't catastrophize the pain. That's step 1. Don't panic. You don't panic, do you? I tell myself I'm probably not broken. Like, yeah, it hurts, but I probably didn't just fracture my spine. I can still walk. I'm okay. Then I look for an entry point. And what I mean by that is, for instance, in this deadlift scenario, can I touch my toes? Well, I'm fat and stiff, but you get my point. If the answer is yes, then I know I'm not broken. Nothing is so serious that I need to call an ambulance or go to the doctor. Sometimes I take a couple minutes to catch my breath, calm down, but then I progress that entry point. So I go from touching my toes, and then I ask myself, can I do a deadlift with an empty barbell? If I can, and maybe it's not totally pain-free, but it's manageable, and then I feel okay maybe wrapping up that day. I go home, and then the next deadlift day, I try and find another entry point a little more specific to my movement. So when I go back to the gym now, after doing just the simple things like touching my toes and an empty barbell, I've got the confidence that I'm not broken. I just need to ease back in. Maybe I go that day from an empty bar to 135 pounds. And maybe 225 is when I start feeling the pain a little bit again. Okay, so maybe I drop down to 185 where the pain is manageable. And then the next time I deadlift, I'll try and go a little higher. For general back pains and tweaks, this method has never failed me personally. The pain usually goes away in 1 to 3 weeks. And I didn't really need any special rehab work. I didn't foam roll like crazy or anything. I just decreased the weight, basically a strategic deload, and gently poked that bear week by week, but just not enough to anger the bear and get hurt. Eventually my body said, you know what? We're good. That's step 2 of the protocol, which is to progress smartly and have realistic expectations. Dr. Baraki dives deeper into this in that video. Maybe you can't do the original movement like a full range of motion deadlift pain-free right now, but maybe you can do a variation and you just work your way down the ladder of specificity from there. So if deadlifts are bothering your back, maybe the full range of motion is the issue. But after some experimentation, you find that pulling from blocks, just the second half of the lift, maybe that feels fine. So you train that for a few weeks and eventually you build back up to that full range of motion again. You get the idea. You find that entry point, whether that's a lighter load or a shorter range of motion or a combination of both, or maybe even just a completely different accessory exercise. And for me, this approach allows me to keep training. I stay in the habit of going to the gym. I stay consistent, and I don't let my brain blow the pain out of proportion. And because I've been training still week to week, I kind of know where I'm at. Instead, if I rested for 3 weeks, I wouldn't really know where I'm at, and I might try to just match where I was before, and maybe I end up getting hurt then. And the evidence backs this up. Completely resting something you just injured, that can actually be worse. The article talks about it again. One approach we typically do not recommend for most routine aches and pains in the gym is absolute rest. While recovery is certainly an important component of training, adaptation, and rehabilitation, absolute rest is typically unnecessary and comes with costs as well. Specifically, it results in a loss of fitness adaptations, leaving the individual progressively more detrained the longer they spend away from training. This often results in a situation where an athlete returns to training with a strong desire to handle workloads they are no longer able to handle, increasing the risk of recurrent symptoms and further psychological distress given their now decreased tolerance for loading. Additionally, we have evidence in several contexts that absolute rest often results in either no improvement or worse outcomes. So if you ever thought your body was fragile after an injury, or you felt scared to lift again, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments how you overcame that Or what movement gave you the most fear in coming back? I want to talk more about managing expectations and pain, and I'm going to use a personal example. In the fall of 2018, I started playing rugby for the college I was attending, and I hurt my ankle bad. I was 20 minutes late to my first class the next morning because I couldn't walk, even with an ankle brace. I took a couple practices off. I didn't really know anything about pain or injury science back at the time, so I just did what most people would. I rested my ankle and I iced it a lot, which I'll get to in a minute why that was probably a bad idea. I went to an urgent care and I got some imaging done, and it showed a small fracture, maybe even a tear, but honestly, none of that mattered much to me. I was just in pain. And we didn't really have a lot of substitutes on the team, and we had a lot of momentum, so I wanted to keep playing, and I wanted to tough it out. I've been told I'm pretty stubborn about pain to a fault. I would hop up and down on my ankle before practices and games, and then just wrap it up really tightly. I watched YouTube videos on how to deal with the pain, and I specifically remember following an Athlete X video on running some PT exercises that mildly helped directly before I started running on it for games and practices. So I just played for a while on a really messed up ankle, and the pain kept coming back. Sometimes it improved, good days or bad days, but overall the trend just wasn't good. After I graduated and COVID hit, I had a permanent limp. Everywhere I went, I assumed I would never run again. I figured I was just one of those guys that had a bad ankle now. You know, kind of like how the neighborhood dad sometimes says, I would have gone pro in the NFL if it weren't for my knee. That's kind of how I felt. I wore an ankle brace constantly. Without it, I would roll my ankle all of the time. I couldn't even go downstairs without holding onto a handrail for support. Eventually, I developed this weird little bone spur on top of it. I got another x-ray and it showed some strange bone growth right where the fracture had been. The surgeon wasn't really quite sure what it even was. I figured that must be what's causing all my pain. It felt like bone rubbing against bone. So the surgeon who performed that x-ray, thankfully he wasn't knife happy. He told me, well, we can do surgery, but I'd really like to see if you want to try PT first and see if that helps. And he told me all the risks with surgery. You know, it might get worse after surgery. And he also talked to me about expectations. He told me even with surgery, I might still have pain for the rest of my life, or that I could have decreased mobility for the rest of my life, that I might have to get used to it, but I could learn to increase my pain tolerance and find ways around the pain to live a normal life. And I was only 25 years old. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I don't know, when he started talking and I went to PT, just something clicked. Neurons connected. My frontal lobe was developing. And over time and going to PT and, you know, just as the years rolled on, I realized maybe the goal isn't to be pain-free for me. Maybe the goal for me is to stop catastrophizing my pain and just learn how to live with it. And that's when I really started thinking deeply about this stuff and doing some evidence-based research. That's how I found guys like Aaron Kubal, who talks about pain science. He got famous on TikTok for doing stuff like that. That's how I found Barbell medicine and a bunch of other, resources. And going to physical therapy, it did help. And that's about when I also kind of began my powerlifting journey. I started squatting regularly. At first, it was really uncomfortable, but the stronger I got, the stronger my ankle became. Eventually, I stopped needing a brace 24/7, and I lost that constant fear of rolling it all the time. And from a pain perspective, I think the PT helped by strengthening the surrounding tissues and ligaments, tendons and muscles, but so did lifting and so did getting stronger. But even more than that, I think what really helped was managing my expectations. I realized I might never be pain-free again, but I could increase my pain tolerance. I could stop telling myself I was damaging tissue every time I rolled it or I felt that stabbing pain on going down the stairs. When I began, wanting to rehabilitate my ankle, my goal was to have a pain-free ankle. I had to shift that goal to a less painful ankle, to pain that I could live with, to a life I considered normal, even if the pain didn't go away. And as the years passed, my ankle continued to improve. I even played another season of men's rugby this past fall, something I never thought I would do again. And then funny enough, a couple months after that season, I rolled my ankle really badly on a hike, and I was just about halfway through the hike, so I finished it out, and it brought back all of those old memories. It hurt for weeks, just as bad as it did in 2018. But this time I didn't catastrophize it. And yeah, to be fair, it still kind of hurts 6 months later after rolling it then. Not every day and not as bad, but it's still there. And lo and behold, I just started doing some controlled calf raises again, and it's already feeling pretty good. Still, now I have the confidence to go about my life without having to baby it all the time. I can tolerate the pain a little better even when it's bad. When I roll it or when the pain spikes at maximum intensity, I just let it pass through me and I don't freak out. And again, I think it goes to this concept, totally resting it wasn't the best thing for me. The more I used my ankle, the better it got. The more I avoided using my ankle to avoid pain, the worse it got. So personally, I've developed this use it or lose it mentality when it comes to my body. Now I kind of think of PT as PT helped me find that entry point, and I just progressed from there. All right, yes, I've changed filming spots like 4 times in my house. This has taken weeks to film and to write. I even just got a brand new desk and setup, so thanks for hanging in with me. This next thing I want to talk about is how we've all heard the term RICE before. You know, rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's just what we have been told our whole lives to do anytime we're injured. It gets drilled into us anytime we roll an ankle or tweak something, is to rest it, ice it, elevate it, slap on some compression. But here's the thing, most of that advice is completely outdated. Also, the guy that did the initial research on that totally has recanted it. As we've already talked about, you know, in my own personal experience, and probably some of you resonate, is that rest isn't always the answer. In fact, full rest might make things worse, as we've talked about in the article. The less you use a body part after an injury, the more likely it is to lose strength, mobility, and your confidence in it. And that's not just theory, that's like what the evidence is showing. But this is something that surprised me, and I think surprises a lot of people, is that when you ice an injury, like put frozen peas or a bag of ice on it, is that also slows down the healing. And I know this one was really hard for me to unlearn. I grew up thinking that's just like what you do. You twist your ankle, you ice it, the little back tweak, grab the frozen peas. But now the evidence is showing that inflammation isn't always the enemy. It's actually just part of your body's natural healing process. When you ice something, you're blunting that inflammation response. And while it might feel good in the moment, it numbs the pain, reduces swelling, but it can actually delay recovery at the tissue level. Healing in your muscles requires blood flow. Inflammation is that blood and nutrients flowing, and icing it slows down that whole process. Again, it's just another thing where, like, the more we try to avoid pain, the more worse we kind of end up making things. And that's not to say I still never ice anything. When I just played that seasons of men's rugby, I don't really care if I'm delaying the healing a little bit. I just need to feel good for the game. So I think there is a use case where icing can be important for having to perform right then and there. And, you know, if the pain is going to prevent you from performing, like in a game or at a meet, I think that's a good use case. But like when you're just training, it's probably a good idea to not. And I'm keeping this section a little bit shorter than the others because it's not really the main point of the video. I just think it's interesting to talk about. You know, if you roll your ankle, tweak your back, or feel something weird in a lift, just know that most of the evidence-based research isn't saying shut everything down, go home. It's saying to find that entry point. Stay moving and don't panic. Don't rest it into stiffness and weakness. And while I think compression and elevation might have a place in certain contexts, like managing extreme swelling right after an acute injury, the most important tools for you probably aren't in your freezer. They're your mindset, your movement, and your patience. So for me, I let inflammation do its job now. I let my body adapt and just know that I'm not broken and that I'm healing. And this is why I personally don't do cold plunges or ice baths unless I need to like perform the next day for like a rugby game or something. I typically take hot showers because to me, like, the heat will increase blood flow. And you can look up other terms out there. I've literally heard like METH, like movement, elevation, traction, and heat. There's also another term out there called peace and love for how you should handle injuries now, I would just stay away from rice. But there's obvious medical nuance here. If I had brain surgery and my neurosurgeon tells me to ice my head to reduce the swelling, I'm going to listen to my doctor, right? So I'm not getting into that kind of situation now. What I'm talking about here is the difference between acute injuries like broken bones, surgery, or serious accidents versus more common stuff like ankle sprains, low back tweaks, shoulder pain from bench pressing. So please don't go to your doctor and say, some guy on YouTube said to not ice it, when they're giving you specific medical instructions. Like, seriously, don't do that. And just to be clear again, for liability reasons, this video is not medical advice, and I'm not a medical professional. Don't sue me, please. And you know, when I injured my thumb, I didn't just jump right back into normal life and pretended nothing happened. I listened to my surgeon. I listened to my physical therapists. And maybe I pushed the boundary a little bit, but listening to them and doing what they said, that worked out really well for me. All right, to wrap up, I just want to point out a couple things. I've talked about this stuff on different Reddit posts in the past, and traditionally the folks who seem to disagree with my mindset here are a lot of the older gym goers or people that stopped going to the gym because they hurt something. Usually they say something like, that's really a dangerous way of thinking. Or, I'm 65 years old, so of course I'm going to focus on form and avoid certain exercises because I only care about, you know, being fit in my senior years, and you're only able to do this because you're really young and spry. And while I disagree with that mentality, I get it. I am not preaching that you should ignore exercises if you subjectively feel they are dangerous. If you have certain ways of training that feel safer to you, your limitations or your age, I think that's a great thing. If it's going to help you, increase your quality of life or your longevity, you don't have to bench press or deadlift or whatever. I don't care what you do. You don't even have to go heavy, right? Screw progressive overload. Just move your body, go walking, do hikes, wear your ankle brace. And maybe this is you. Maybe you feel kind of called out watching this video because maybe you've been avoiding movement and that's painful. I'm not judging you. I don't think you're weak. At the end of the day, if we're moving our bodies more and you're able to do the things you love, like hiking, walking with your kids or grandkids, or literally even getting up off the toilet by yourself, your quality of life is going to be so much better. So maybe you take this video with a grain of salt, or maybe you disregard everything I said and chalk it up to me being young and having a strong body right now. But my counterpoint to that is I've literally seen clips of 89-year-olds deadlifting 405 pounds for reps. I just saw somebody 100 years old sprinting, and there are countless examples of people in their old, decrepit age living incredibly high quality lives, better than a lot of 50-year-olds that I know. And no, your ability to do exercise doesn't automatically mean that your life is high quality. That's subjective, but you get what I mean. I think at the end of the day, as I get older, I'm not going to try to just avoid pain, because I know pain doesn't necessarily mean harm. And it's been shown over and over again that living a life designed to completely avoid pain tends to lead to more pain. And hey, I'm turning 30 in like 2 weeks from recording this section of the video. I don't feel as good as I did when I was 17. I wake up with aches and pains, but our bodies aren't machines. I think that's just a normal part of aging, and we can have expectations for that. And we can either use that as an excuse to do less or a reason to do more. I truly believe that movement is medicine. And personally, I don't demonize any exercise or movement as inherently safe or unsafe. Instead, I focus on fatigue and load management. If an exercise or form passes my pool noodle test, then I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I'm just going to say, be mindful of how much volume you do and how much weight you put on it. And that's not telling you not to train hard. You've got to train hard. There's a Goldilocks zone for sure. This whole video is just my philosophy on managing pain, both mentally and physically, and on managing injury risk. There's one thing I hope you take away. It's that pain doesn't always really mean harm, and movement isn't your enemy. You're stronger than you think, and your body isn't broken. It's adaptable. train smart, but don't train scared. I think another video idea I have brewing is whether wraps or sleeves actually make you safer. Spoiler alert, I don't think they do, but feel free to disagree with me in the comments below. But that being said, this wraps up the video. It's a long one, and obviously this is something I feel pretty passionate about. I hope if my philosophy resonates with you, that it helps you on your own journey. And if you vehemently disagree with me, I'd love to know why. Just keep it cordial in the comments. And whether you disagree or love my content, you've made it this far, so please consider giving me a like and subscribe to my channel. It was my goal at the beginning of the year to hit 500 subscribers by the end of summer, and we hit that on June 12th. I'm recording this section, it's June 25th, and we're like at 565. So we're blowing up a little bit more than I expected to. So just thank you so much for your support. I do really love reading all of your comments. Help me out with more video ideas, and let's keep this thing rolling. I've got a bunch of video ideas cooking already, but I want to know what you want to see. This video really was inspired by a lot of people in my comments and my DMs asking how to manage pain and injury, especially on bench press. My bench videos tend to do my best because, you know, us meatheads, squats, we love deadlifts, but everybody wants a bigger bench. That's what the guys care about. Nobody's asking how much you squat, they ask how much you bench. Though if you're a competitor like me, you just kind of care more about your total. Please check out the resources in the description below. You can see some of what I've read and help piece together how I connected that with my anecdotal experiences to make this video. If you like this content and want to see more, please give me a like, a comment, and a subscription. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. Till next time.